Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing is an authorized brother dealer and repairs all brands of machines. Mid-South Sewing, known for their many fabrics, classes, and individual instructions. Classes on sewing and embroidery machines, software, sergers, and quilting. Mid-South Sewing, Knoxville and Murfreesboro.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by Next to New, an upscale consignment shop serving Knoxville. nexttonewknox.com. And by The Flower Pot, for over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. knoxvilleflowerpot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Coming up on this edition of Tennessee Life, inspired by a classic of children's literature, the Knoxville Botanical Garden is bringing the magic of the secret garden to life.
There are very few secret gardens that are actually open to the public, not only through the United States, but through the whole world.
A farmer in Sevier County is cultivating one of nature's woven wonders. The loofah may look like a cucumber, but what's inside is much different.
It grows like a cucumber, just bigger. It's in the cucumber family, but it's actually called a loofah gourd.
Those naturally wild-growing plants that make up the beauty of the volunteer state are getting special attention from the Native Plant Rescue Squad.
One of the reasons why this is an amazing place to do what we're doing is because East Tennessee has one of the most diverse populations of native plants in the world.
Those stories next on Tennessee Life.
Thanks for joining us for this unique garden edition of Tennessee Life. I'm your host, Vicki Lawson. There's an attraction you can visit at the Knoxville Botanical Garden that's unlike any other. The Secret Garden, with all of its plants and artistry, is based on the famous book by the same name, whose author has an interesting Tennessee connection.
Well, this is probably one of the most exciting projects that we've had in Knoxville in quite some time. It's called The Secret Garden, and the project is based upon the book The Secret Garden that was written by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and she wrote the book The Secret Garden, which just about everybody's read, especially as young children. We've all been either read it or it's been read to us, and the garden is based off of that concept. But also the fact that the author spent a significant amount of her time here as a child and as a young lady who was a very prolific writer here in Knoxville, living in 3 different locations, eventually ending up on Riverside Drive down on the river. The Secret Garden book was actually published in 1911, and her time in Knoxville was prior to that. And we all want to think and hope that maybe some of the seeds from this area were implanted in her that maybe led to some of the things that appeared in the Secret Garden itself. And we had another lady that loved the gardens and was a very adamant supporter and always wanted us to build the Secret Garden, and she passed away. Her name was Andy Ray, and she loved gardening and she loved the botanical gardens, and I think it was always her wish that the Secret Garden would happen here at the Botanical Gardens. Upon her passing, there was a lot of interest generated from friends and family being able to put something not only in memory of Andy, but also in memory of the author of the book, The Secret Garden. And it just, everything fell into place, and I became very passionate about putting it here and finding that place out here for that to be. And so it all came together. The book itself has several different images that become very important in the role of the story. It's the story of a healing garden, of a little girl who was orphaned. As you go through the door to the Secret Garden, which is a very prominent feature in the book, then the garden kind of opens before you, as well as the story. I was very excited to have the opportunity to build the door itself and to make that part of my contribution to the Secret Garden. The door to the Secret Garden, which to me is one of the most significant parts, is something that I took on as my own project. So I'm developing a door with local woods, and we have a metalsmith doing some hinges, but it will be very reflective of the actual door that we think represented the book and the images that we've seen from the book and the illustrations. Well, the garden itself is quite large. It'd be about half the size of a football field. So it's a very large garden. I think that kind of gives people kind of a perspective of what it looks like. It'll be multi-dimensional. It'll have concrete pathways throughout the garden. So from each point in the garden is actually designed so that you get different perspectives as you walk along. The robin redbreast actually keyed Mary into and had dialogue with Mary that allowed her to be able to find the keys that actually opened the secret door. So that was a specific role and a very important part of the book, which will be represented in the garden itself with statuary. We'll have statuary of lots of the different characters that played an important role into the book itself.
The Knoxville Botanical Garden and Arboretum really dates back over 200 years. In 1786, when David Howe in North Carolina received a land grant for his service to the American Revolutionary War. He came to this area, he farmed this land, and started an orchard. Later on, he sold plants and food to the people that lived around this area. We are making milestones in trying to get the word out that we are a botanical garden and arboretum that is up here on this beautiful ridge that is full of serenity, a place of beauty, a place to relax, a place to see history and to continue the legacy of the Howe Nurseries.
The Howes, who this property was developed from 1786 until the late 1990s, I think will just be amazed and very pleased that while it's not a nursery, I think their love of plants and the number and the nature of the plants that we'll have, I think they would be very happy to be able to see this property taking on different relevance and being preserved and honoring the history that they had for so many hundreds of years here. We have some very unique opportunities. It'll be a much different garden than what you see around you here at the Botanical Gardens. This will be more of a formal garden. Formal gardens require a lot more maintenance, so we're hoping that down the road that this garden itself will loan itself to being able to educate students into formal gardening techniques, and then we're hoping that eventually we'll be able to entice some students that want to come in and learn that and learn about that kind of gardening to be able to actually come here and practice their techniques and learn their techniques right here, and will open up us a great opportunity to do some programming for the community in formal gardens and maintenance and development of formal gardens. So we're looking at some really positive things going forward, and we do think that attendance will just grow in numbers once this gets in and people are able to discover it for the first time. A lot of places around, you're starting to see these little micro libraries pop up in different communities, and we're going to actually have that here because the garden is so tied around the Secret Garden book. We do think that that will be an important part of where people can come, pull a book out, maybe read, take it with them, bring it back, or put it back in the library for the next person. And we think that we'll have several of her books in that little library itself. It'll be a great place to come and read. There are very few secret gardens that are actually open to the public, not only through the United States, but through the whole world. There's basically one in England. This will be the only one in the United States that's completely open to the public, no charge. And most secret gardens are done privately, so they have very limited ability for people to actually go see them. So this will be open for everyone to be able to come see. So we're hoping that it'll become a very big attraction for gardeners or garden enthusiasts to be able to come, or just bring your family and relive the story of the Secret Garden here in East Tennessee.
It will emulate the book, and so I think people will be pleased. It will bring them back to their childhood, and if they haven't read it, they will just be absolutely overwhelmed with the beauty and the design that has gone into this. So it will be something of pride and joy that we can give back to this community, and they will be able to enjoy it for years to come.
And the garden is going to be one of those things that will grow together as it goes on. The day that it's open will be one image, but as it goes on from year one and year two, and things come in and things change, so it's a very dynamic process. So I don't look at it as a project that will have an ending date, but one that will just continue onward.
Later on Tennessee Life, a new group is on a mission to save our state's native plants before they're destroyed. And next, one of nature's wonders doesn't come from the ocean, but from a vine grown in East Tennessee.
It may look like a cucumber, but one Sevier County man looking for something unique to grow stumbled upon the loofah. You can use them in the shower or even in the kitchen to scrub your pots and pans. Rob Ersprung shows us how he grows and harvests the loofah.
Well, my neighbors thought this was grape arbors because from the road it doesn't look like it's this high. And several of them would stop by and say, when are those grapes going to be ready? And then a couple of them thought that they were okras because they saw the flowers and they thought, what, this guy is growing giant okras or something. So it did cause a lot of stir among the neighbors. They really noticed for sure. Actually what it is a loofah. It's a loofah gourd. It's in the cucumber family. Each one of these flowers is the male flower and they come off every day. All these flowers come off. The females have their own special flower and it turns into the loofah. And the loofah just grows, it hangs on the vine for several months, and then we take the skin off and the sponge is inside. My name's Rob Ersprung. I grow loofahs in Sevier County. It's just our small farm, but we have lots of big loofahs. You know, normally people think of loofahs just in the shower for exfoliating your skin, but they're also very porous, which makes them great for scrubbing anything. I scrub my tractor with them. Pure mud, rinse it in a bucket and it rinses clean. You know, normally people use them around the sink. You can clean your pots and pans with them or scrub potatoes and carrots or your sink itself, your stove top. Anything that you would use like a light Brillo pad on would be perfect for that. And they don't scratch, so you don't have to worry. When we're at the farmer's market, so many people come to me and say, what is this? I thought it was a sponge from the ocean. And I tell them, did you know loofahs grew on a vine like a cucumber? And they're all like amazed. Sometimes it's hard for them to believe. Sometimes they finally say, I finally get it once they see the whole loofah. But most people don't realize that they're from a gourd or grow on a vine. They think that they're from the ocean. Until a few years ago, I had no idea myself. I just had gotten this farm and was looking to grow different things and try different things, and I came across this and tried it, and it was a success. I was born in New York City, in the Bronx. I lived there until grade school, where we moved out of the city. My dad worked on the New York Stock Exchange, and I followed in his footsteps, but only lasted about 2 years. And when I got married, I hit the road and I traveled around the country 47,000 miles and stopped in Sevierville on September 14th, 1977. That was my 24th birthday, just by coincidence. And then we raised a family here, and I have children and grandchildren. There's so many beautiful, nice people around here. It's just a perfect place to raise a family, and it's been nothing but good to me my whole life. I've always gardened. Some years I've claimed we've grown the best corn human beings can grow because I concentrated on that a lot, but I've always wanted to try different things, and now this stage of my life I'm just got this place and having a blast. So I don't know if I would say exotic, but I just thought this farm that I just got was so beautiful and the land was so perfect you could grow anything. And that was sort of my idea, is like, what could you grow if you could grow anything? And I came up with a few things, and this was one of them, the one that stuck. One thing being in Tennessee, especially right here, it was so flat and so sunny here. They need sun all the time. We're right in a bottomland, pretty much surrounded by a creek, and they need lots of water, as you can imagine. So being in a creek and this sunny location, it really just worked out perfect. Growing season to get a sponge is very long. We start them in March in a greenhouse. We take these plants out about the middle of May once it's good and warm. They're still small then. Then as they grow up, we train them to the fence, and it's not for a couple of months before they start getting any loofahs at all. And they really don't start getting good loofahs until August and early September. Some of these won't even make it because if it's an early frost or something, they'll be ruined. So this year we're going to throw plastic over the top to try to protect as many as we can to get a longer harvest. To harvest one, they hang here about 2 months, fully grown. And as they dry out and go to seed, the inside is just the whole loofah and just peel off the skin. And you'll see, we take the seeds out, rinse them in rainwater, and then put them in the sun to dry. And that's the whole process. They practically last forever. They don't pull apart, and they just get softer with time. So they're really a beautiful part of nature. Whenever I tell people that they're practically indestructible and you can't pick them apart, they're always like, Mother Nature always does it better. And it really seems to be the case because they just get softer in time. People ask me, how long do they last? And I just tell them, probably, if you take care of it, just as long as you want it to. We use them for this, we use them for that. Next thing we use them for something nasty and we're just done with it after several months and throw it away and get a new one. But if you wanted to, you could keep them for years. When I first started growing the loofahs and what I was interested in learning about here was about farming, and I bought a cool old tractor. I wanted to grow things green and sustainable. I thought with this bottomland, I was just researching anything that could be grown. I figured it could be grown here in pure sun and this beautiful bottom. And that's why I thought I'd try it, because actually they say they're hard to grow and they're not a good cash crop. But being retired, I'm more or less having fun, and that's a bonus.
There's a volunteer group traveling all over Tennessee with a unique mission to save our state's native plants. You'll find the Native Plant Rescue Squad transplanting everything from alum root to yellow trillium to save them before they are lost to construction and logging sites.
Look at that one. We put a number out there that we've rescued about 10,000 plants at this point, which is no small number. There's so much of this material that's going to waste and needs to be in people's landscaping. My name is Jerry Mole, and I'm one of the founders of the Native Plant Rescue Squad. Joy Grissom and I are both gardeners and landscapers, and we both have interest in native plants. Between that interest and then seeing development happen, we would see development sites and here are these plants that we're desperately trying to learn about. We saw that they were being bulldozed under. And these plants that we were trying to get into people's gardens as well, because they're great landscape plants. So basically there's a resource, these native plants, that we saw not being utilized because development is going to happen. We're not anti-development, but we thought, what if we form relationships with builders, developers, foresters, and they can give us a call before the bulldozers come in. We can get this plant material and then work to get this planted in people's landscapes. So it was kind of a combination of things with our interest in native plants and then seeing a resource going unutilized. We started the Native Plant Rescue Squad in the spring of 2015. We had been doing some rescues before that, and that's part of what gave us the idea to formalize this. One of the reasons why this is an amazing place to do what we're doing is because East Tennessee has one of the most diverse populations of native plants in the world. It's amazing. It's a huge part of our heritage here, really, is this biodiversity. So the plants that we rescue, I think there's like 457 endangered plants, like in this area, a huge number of endangered plants. What we're focused on is getting as much plant material that we can from these sites that's going to be dug up and getting it into people's landscapes.
It all became possible because we knew the property owner, and it being 50 acres and selectively logging certain areas, that became an opportunity, like, let's just rescue and see what we can, what we can learn about and offer to the community, along with the education of why they're important.
An example of a forester or a logging project is where we are now. This is a selective logging site. The pines were diseased with pine beetle, so they really needed to take out the pines for the health of this forest. And this site, they want to do like forest farming of medicinal herbs and things like that, and they're kind of very eco-friendly landowners. The cutting of this site took a year, so we learned a lot about what would transplant. We've been received amazingly well. We had no idea how we would be received. We continue to put ourselves out to encourage more relationships, but the relationships that we do have been great. We try to totally respect what's going on the site. We don't want to get in the way of the development, but if the development is going to happen and the plants are going to be destroyed, we want to be able to come in and take them before the bulldozers come. All we need really is a GPS coordinate and a timeline. And we have a contract that we present to the landowner. But yeah, the reception has been great. We also have residential sites. Somebody will call us up and say, hey, somebody's going to come in, they're going to tear all this stuff out. There's a lot of natives. We don't have anywhere, for them to go. Can you come out and get them? We have a clear-cut site right now that's, I think, 64 acres. It's, it's close to the Smoky Mountains. It's a lot of native material.
It really doesn't. We plant.
So some of the local varieties of things that you might find at our booth at the Market Square Farmers Market are spring ephemerals like trillium and bloodroot, Dutchman's breeches, Solomon seal. The list is just huge. And then there's prairie plants. We have coneflower, we have black-eyed Susan, we have brown-eyed Susan, we have purple coneflower, late blooming thoroughwort, asters, we have native asters. So we also rescue native trees and shrubs. Some of them would be sassafras, I think hemlock, dogwoods, azaleas, rhododendrons, all kinds of native plants. Our selection of native plants is probably 70 or 80 native plant varieties is what we generally have in stock, and that's growing all the time. If you go towards native plants, there's plenty of them that are really bright and showy, but they're also some of them are pretty subtle, but no less beautiful. So some of these native plants are delicate, and when you find it, it's just magic.
That's a celandine poppy.
We both feel like it's super important that people plant these native plants. They're beautiful, if for no other reason than plant them because they're gorgeous. But then, butterflies are gorgeous too, and like all these other animals. So thinking about your yard or where you live as habitat and changing that mindset.
There's this sensitive and fine-tuned way of trying to get through to people who are going to prefer what their neighbor's planting or what's commonly used, what looks neat, what they saw in a magazine, things like that. And introducing them to something that's more wild, maybe less unkempt, but when you say the word butterflies and birds, it opens their eyes. And then you're able to open that dialogue as well to why it's important for biodiversity and conservation. There has been a moment every time we've gone that we find some treasure, because we're still learning about a lot of these species, whether it be the ginseng or the golden seal or some rare orchid. That's all good and well, but when we see something that we've never seen before and we have to go to the book to figure out what it is, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we definitely try to have fun with it because it's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work, like rescuing these and making all these connections and potting them up and marketing, and we do a lot of education. When we got into this, we thought that it was going to be a lot of rescue, and it is a lot of rescue, but even more than that, it's education and advocacy. So we're talking to garden clubs. We just had a presentation for the Metropolitan Planning Commission. It really is a way for people to connect to our heritage here in East Tennessee. Knowing these plants, being able to walk out my door and see a bloodroot, underneath the azalea is a connection to place and a connection to East Tennessee. And to me, that's a really, really special thing to have these plants right there with me.
From secret gardens and homegrown loofahs to saving native plants, we hope you've enjoyed this unique garden edition of Tennessee Life. I'm Vicki Lawson. See you next time.
Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing is an authorized brother dealer and repairs all brands of machines. Mid-South Sewing, known for their many fabrics, classes, and individual instructions. Classes on sewing and embroidery machines, software, sergers, and quilting. Mid-South Sewing, Knoxville and Murfreesboro.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by Next to New, an upscale consignment shop serving Knoxville. nexttoknox.com, and by The Flower Pot, for over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations, knoxvilleflowerpot.com, and by viewers like you. Thank you. A DVD of this program is available by visiting easttennesseepbs.org.